on September 25th, I gave a talk at Ignite Chicago. Ignite Chicago is kind of like 5-minute TED Talks that people give, and I gave a 5-minute talk about the Great Pyramid. I was leaving the next day, September 26th, to go inside the Great Pyramid with my team for 2 hours at the permission of the Egyptian government. It just so happened the day that they gave me was October 6th, and I was one of the only people in the pyramid that day. The other person was Melania Trump. So this talk that I gave was taped by a friend of mine, and I'm adding this little bit of an introduction to it because a little bit's cut out. But in 5 minutes, you can only say so much. I tried to give a quick overview about the pyramid, but I did focus on one thing. Was it built by aliens? So please have a look. Laser equipment, how did they do it? The Great Pyramid is located in the center of the Earth's land surface. If you took the longitudinal stripe that covered the most amount of land, if you took the longitudinal stripe that covered the most of the land north and south, it would come that point exactly at the Great Pyramid, go in the ocean on the other side. So it's the most accurately oriented building in the world, more so even than the Greenwich Observatory. Even though it takes up 13 acres, weighs hundreds of thousands of tons, it's perfectly aligned to north, south, east, and west. How did they do that? How did they know? What equipment did they have to do that? If you ever built a shed, you know how hard it is to square it. The Great Pyramid, Peter Tompkins and many other people have said, is a scale model of the Northern Hemisphere, which means that the circumference of the base of the Great Pyramid is related to the circumference of the Earth, something that supposedly only the Greeks knew thousands of years later. How did they know? Sir Flinders Petrie, the father of Egyptology, said of the casing stones that once covered the Great Pyramid to make it like a shining diamond in the desert, he said it was the opticians' work on the scale of acres, the fine work of opticians on the scale of acres. Could we build it today? 13 acres, over 2 million stones, weighing almost 3 tons each on average. Some of them up to 20 and even 50 tons. Those are made of granite, and those were floated from 500 miles away from the quarries in Aswan where the granite is through papyrus boats. We don't know how they did it. There's an Arab saying that says, man fears time, but time fears the Great Pyramid. Some people say, there's a school of people that say the Great Pyramid, an inch per year, predicts the end of time. It predicts when the Christ was born. It predicts the date of the Exodus. How does it know? There's an Egyptian saying that says, as above, so below. So the 3 stars in Orion, those are the 3 Great Pyramids in Giza are perfectly aligned with those stars, and so with other stars in the constellations. How did they know this? How did they lay it out like that? The air shafts, 2 coming out of the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid and 2 coming out of the Queen's Chamber, are like 4 by 8 inches, and we've only been able to study them in modern times because of robotics that we've made to fit in there and photograph them. How did they make them point to these stars that were so important to the Egyptian cosmogony? Mathematicians say it's a conundrum. How do you square the circle? By what formula can you make a circle and know what the same size square would have the same area? If you take the centerpiece of the Great Pyramid, use it as a radius, the area of the circle formed by that is the same area as the base of the pyramid. The pyramid squares the circle. Here I am in Abu Sur, where the 5th dynasty pyramids are. Now, the Great Pyramid is the last one of the 4th dynasty, and then there's this tremendous drop-off in the 5th dynasty. Where did all that technology go? Okay, 3 reasons why they weren't built by aliens. First of all, I'm here with Dr. Hawass, probably the most famous archaeologist in the world, and we are where the tombs of the builders are. Egyptians. They were honored people. They weren't slaves, and so their names of the overseers, they're honored people. They were great craftsmen. Here I am again. The breweries are there that fed them the beer. The bakeries are there. It was built by Egyptians, not aliens. The second reason I give you for it not being built by aliens is I've studied the major pyramids in Egypt, and just like in third world countries, father teach son most of the trades. Sneferu was the father of Khufu, who built the Great Pyramid, and he built the pyramid at Meidum, the Red Pyramid, the Bent Pyramid, and the Red Pyramid in Dashur, and each of those pyramids developed something that the one before it didn't have. And so the Great Pyramid is built by historical Egyptians in historical time. It didn't come as some alien invention. It was men, father teaching son, learning. Nobody knew how to build pyramids. Each one of us, by the way, was the largest building on the face of the earth at the time it was built. The Great Pyramid for 4,000 years was the tallest building. Okay, there's battle lines between the New Agers, Robert Pahl, Graham Hancock, and here I am between the paws of the Sphinx with Dr. Hawass. And he says that they were built by Egyptians. They imply they were built by some superior force before that. So Dr. Hawass invited these men, who were often very critical of each other, and that's being polite in their books. He invited them to the King's Chamber to show them some greedy. And this is my third evidence, an archaeological piece of evidence. He showed them where the workers tooled on these stones that are hidden up there, the cartouche of King Khufu, and it's plainly not added later by somebody that can tell by the way the red ink is there. And so that led both Baval and Hancock to back off a little bit in their books and say, okay, And so they had to kind of reassess their theories. Okay, well, if you want to follow some